I've talked about the education marketing experience, which I've been able to bring to the gallery and build on through the seminars and the learnings that I've gained at Debut. But things like blogging and Twitter and social media and all of that is a great way not just to kind of promote yourself and to form new connections, but also it's a networking thing. It's a great way to keep in touch. We're keeping in touch with all of our fellow London artists via Twitter updates, and we're having some filming for YouTube. So that's something that the gallery helps us with, but the gallery also encourages the debut artists to do themselves. And that's really grown into a massive thing, and it's brought the artists together, collaborating on this type of thing, and having discussions outside of the gallery, digitally as well as face-to-face. So I think that's a massive area, so I won't go into it anymore, but that's something which is definitely an additional feature. It's something that Debut strongly champions. So if they have the artist guest blogging on their website, for example, which helps the artist to gain credentials and experience. So I talked about the mentoring, that's obviously an additional feature. Sure, okay, that's basically it, I think that's mainly it. Yeah?
Let's save it for the discussion. I just want to summarize where we're at. Nick, can we go over 15 minutes?
What?
Can we go over 15 minutes? We had a Q&A with the Flagstop Committee at 3 o'clock, but I think it's important to field some more questions. I would just like to highlight and summarize a little bit. Here we are at Lexus. Sales, right? This is intentional, and people won't buy things if they're not interested and not educated. And so what we've heard so far is that there's a great deal of conversation and responsiveness, qualitative learning, complementary programs and such. And those are the things that are really hard to define and detail in black and white. However, you're hearing various successful models of how that's done. And Flagstop, of course, being one of those. You hear a lot about some of the more successful business models, from Ford to Apple, and often you hear words such as innovation. Artists invented that, frankly. Creativity.
Let's see the documentation on that one.
Afterwards. It was Newsweek, I believe. So there's my idealism showing its, rearing its ugly head again. But really, I think you're hearing it from the horse's mouth here. These are people who are successful, or at least highly ambitious in making a stakehold for the art world. And so now this is a point where I would like to get really specific with your concerns and your questions with this 15 minutes. If we could field some questions. Could we hear from one other person? I would like to come back to you. Thank you. Anyone else?
In terms of what's going on there in the last 10 years, is a couple of things. One is certainly, as Friedman in the the New York Times said, the world is now flat, which essentially means everybody knows everything about nearly everything. Technology is really important. The rise of biennial, this phenomenon of biennials in states, biennales, global art fairs, ArtGo, Frieze, in London, Shanghai, Dubai, they've all become very, very important marketplaces for artists. And so what you see happening is a lot of galleries are now moving to move their programs to these various art fairs. So a lot of angst around that because it's a very expensive proposition. The other thing that's really interesting is to see a lot of artists taking control of their own careers, personal websites. There's one that I particularly like, yhchang.org. It's a text-based site, and it's translated in 5 different languages. So with that, I think I'll leave it at that and pass it on. Was there, unless you're giving me the eyebrow? Yeah.
That I don't have any money to actually afford a real space, and I think that that's I mean, it's not totally unique, but it works for me in that my main job is working in television and movies, and that gives you enough time off to focus on things that are more hobby oriented. And so I thought that working in a gallery would be fun, and then if I do just this purely pop-up thing, I don't have the capital and the overhead to worry about. So all I have to worry about is getting people to show with me for a few days or a month or whatever it is. And it's, for me, I'm not totally doing the business side of things. Like Bill talked about having the background of banking. I don't know anything about that. I went to school for art and now I do props and movies, so it's like, my background is not very serious at all. And that's sort of how I approach what I do. I mean, I take it seriously, but it's, the shows I do, I've only done a few, but they are all about what I would like to see. And so it's not so much just my friends, but people I've met and the artists I like. And so the shows are about what I would like to see and what I think my friends would like to see. And I'm selling things, no, not really. And that's because it's not my full-time job, that's not an issue for me. I don't have to worry about covering bills and everything because I have my own boring job to go back to. So this is just it's a different approach to, I think, doing something similar. And I have a pod here, and it's right out there in the front. And I, again, approached it as a way to show my friends' work at a unique event that I thought they would appreciate being a part of and they would benefit from being at. So that's sort of my background. It's
Contemporary, which is a mentoring platform for artists, and a gallery in West London, Notting Hill. I don't know if you may have heard of it. So I'm actually an artist myself. I'm showing some work in a pod outside with 13 other really amazing artists from Debut Contemporary. The London Art Box pod, which is just outside the front door. So Debut Contemporary, I've been with them for nearly a year now. They're a fantastic opportunity, and I've got so involved that I've now taken on more of an ambassadorial role for the gallery. So Debut itself is an independent platform. It helps the artist. It differs from a normal gallery because it's helping the artist to actually learn the skills through the mentoring process.
In other words, it's supposed to be the opposite of selling cars or hamburgers. And it seems to me that the art world has worked very hard for the past few decades to stuff art into standard business models with an emphasis on branding, marketing, celebrity, trade fairs, investment, and profit. And as a result, we've lost touch with some of the higher reasons we all became involved.